Hello, 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 and welcome to episode 2 of season 2 of Emotional Energy Podcast. I'm your host, Olivia Renee, and hello. So today's episode is actually the second time I'm recording episode 2. I get really excited about this work. My heart, I love it. I think it's extremely informative, and I think it's extremely beneficial for those that need it, and the magic I see my clients doing daily. And I feel like it's really important to share those stories through the season. Obviously, I've changed any of their information. Check out my disclaimer that will be posted today. And I hope that you listen to that before every episode. It just kind of talks about what I'm going to talk about. And yeah. So throughout today's session, I will bring up various client dynamics, scenarios. I have changed information about them. But instead of just telling you, I think it's really easy. In a lot of literature, a lot of books will say, if you're holding pain here, this is it. And what I've learned and gathered from a lot of clients over the last couple of years is we are so detached from our heart that people don't know what they're feeling, or they'll blanket it as stress. People absolutely love that word. And sometimes my job and my intuition is to help clients kind of dive into the layers. And so what may they think be here, it's truly actually here that's causing it. And so I'm that middle person that kind of helps you access that. And so I think it's important to kind of break down the story in hopes that you can reflect and look at your own body a little bit different and dive into your own heart just that much deeper. So I also feel called to also start adding in these episodes a overall collective pull. I think it's important in general. And so the episode will kind of be geared off that. We'll wrap around and kind of go through what I'm seeing in my office as well. And then a little affirmation, a little journal prompt, and then kind of what's coming up for me in my own personal life. I am right alongside of you doing this work every day. And yeah, so let's get started. So collectively, what pulled forward today was just owning what is happening in life, denial. And again, that doesn't have to resonate with you throughout this entire episode. Take what works for you. Okay, babe? So again, collectively, I feel like a lot of us are in denial in a lot of different ways. Looking at a pattern aspect, which I love. Disowning is technically a type of denial. It's a form of protection. It's easier to close our eyes, not see it, not feel it, not look at it, stuff it just a little bit deeper. And I think through everything that's happening energetically in the world, politically, financially, all of these things, it is very heavy and a little scary, to say the least. So kind of throughout today's episode, I just want you to reflect on that. Is there any part of your life that you are in denial? Are you disowning a certain aspect of yourself? I know for me, I'm scared to use my voice. And that's part of the reason I deleted the second episode. I was worried maybe I said too much. I got really excited, very passionate about this. Worried did I overstep on certain client information? Even though I changed it all, I still don't ever want to impede on their own energy. And I love the ones that allow me to share. But there's so much power in this. And not just what comes out of my mouth, but just the ability to turn inward. So much of our life, we look and look and look and look outside of ourselves. And anything that I can do to help get people in their heart is huge to me. And so although I deleted it, I had to sit, reflect for the last couple of days. Where was my heart in this? I try my best to always move with love, and my intention is pure and raw, and I can't help how other people perceive that. And so again, check out that disclaimer if you feel like that you need that. So kind of reflecting back before I kind of dive into stories that have come up in my office, I just want you to ask yourself, is there any obstacles that you could look at as invitations to move differently? A lot of times with obstacles, we just fight and we push and we dig our feet in and we sit in that denial or in that protection state. But is there a part of you that could just look at that as an invitation to just move differently? And what comes up for me in that is not only showing up on this podcast and using my voice for something bigger than just me. The first season was definitely healing for me, just allowed me to use my voice. But the second season is much more than just me. And that is scary. And so I could have done one or two things, right? I could have just stopped, reverted back like I have in the past. You'll see these big gaps between these podcast episodes. Sometimes it was intentional for healing. Other times I got scared. What was I going to say? Was I going to be judged? Was I going to be looked at differently because other things had come to light that I wasn't aware of when I was recording certain episodes in my personal life? And I think that can be heavy, and that can be definitely a little scary. So looking at it as an invitation to just move differently, that I can share my magic and my medicine and help people access the medicine within them. You are the power, and that's something I think is so important. I think, again, so much of us are disconnected from our heart, and anymore in my algorithms, it's people just searching and searching and searching for answers and not getting anything and spending thousands of dollars when so much of it is here if we just took a step back and created that relationship within ourselves. So again, is there any obstacles you're facing that could be invitations to move differently, not just push harder? Sit on that, ruminate on that a little bit. So to kind of break down in clients, every podcast will be a little bit different. Sometimes I'll just say, hey, this is what pulled. This is kind of dynamics they were going through. Other ones, I'm going to give a little bit of detail. Again, I've changed various aspects of this, but the emotion is still the emotion. It's just showing how we got from here to here in a lot of ways, because I think, again, this is important. So my first client is in between like 30s and 50s range, and she had come into me a few times prior, and each time we just kind of peel back a layer. I always say every session is different. Your body is showing me what it's willing to show me and kind of work through. And so in previous sessions, we had pulled information. I had pulled kind of dates, and that date was around time she met her partner, like 10 years ago. And to her in that time frame, everything seemed really great. So she couldn't really understand why I was pulling those dates. So we dove in a session, and the emotions that came forward were misheard, micromanaged, misused, shame, forgotten, playing small, curious, ashamed, and betrayal. And a lot of what the focus was on was this dynamic relationship with her partner. But the deeper that we went down in, it ended up actually being from childhood, which is a lot of where our wounding kind of starts and our patterning. And it was a specific family dynamic that made her feel all of these emotions where she locked them in. So although when she met her partner, everything was beautiful and great, her nervous system had never felt safe to fully allow that love in. So she closed off, she struggled to show aspects of her heart. And a beautiful part, and like why I want to kind of tell again these stories, is because at the end of it, she came to and was like, oh my gosh, my partner has always been there. My partner always listened to me. My partner never made me question. And the amount of love that came out and forward into the surface for her partner was beautiful. Just being able to make that connection within her own body. She also was having some issues last year with a specific organ. Came out of nowhere. It was almost in the form of like shutting down. And so she asked if I would kind of pull on that and just see if we could get any information. A lot of times emotions and stuff can lay dormant in your body until you switch into different environments, and you'll hear me say that a lot. And so what pulled for that specific organ was constantly unheard, never, 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 never. So then if you look at that and pull back to that childhood wounding of misheard, micromanaged, misused, shame, forgotten, playing small, curious, ashamed, betrayal. So anytime she felt curious and got shut down, anytime she felt like she was forgotten, right, we started to kind of hold these in her body. And so then through that partner dynamic, when they would bump heads or have that issue, or she felt like in that moment he never was actually hearing her, she was again storing that in her body. So being able to make that full loop, because it's easy to ask a client, hey, I pulled this, are you feeling this? And usually the first reaction is no, until we start to dive into the layers, to the layers, to the layers. So I challenge you throughout any of this, when you're journaling, when you're looking within, take it one step further. And that was overall a beautiful session. And yeah, so we'll move to the next session. This is a client in their 20s to 40s. And she was struggling with some neck issues, had reoccurring kind of sinus issues for the last couple of weeks, and she was having knee issues. So her neck was pulling for disgust and arrogance, and that was tied overall to a relationship she was kind of facing in life. So like a personal aspect of her life. And the sinus infection, I believe, was tied to her like crown chakra, which sits above your head at the top of your head. And what pulled for me there was a belief it will happen again. So it's easier just to hide myself. So again, it was easier to have that congestion, hold it in, than was to face that outside world, because the fear of it happening again, as well as holding the disgust and arrogance, they all end up kind of tying together. And then her right knee that she was struggling with was diminished or less than. And that got triggered when she went back home to Colorado, a place she never really felt welcomed as a child. And she had ran into somebody that she used to know and instantly shut down in her body. And so when I tell clients, like, pain is your body just trying to talk to you, instead of shoving that down, if you were to say, get in your car, take a big breath, and ask your body, hey, my knee never hurts. Like, what am I holding? Why is it hurting? And you would kind of break down this dialogue of, okay, that situation was really uncomfortable. I would have rather not seen him, didn't need to see him. And then kind of reflect back of, hey, that dynamic, I was a really good person. I gave and gave and gave and gave, and that love was never received. That respect was just never really there. So you know what? I am not at loss. There's no reason for that to make me uncomfortable. I'm going to go out my merry way and kind of move it through your body. So again, like I mentioned in the previous episode, a feeling is just a feeling. So if you just allow yourself to feel diminished or less than in that moment, you're not going to attach this huge storyline of, oh, I hate my hometown. I hate this dynamic. I'm not a good person. I can't have good relationships, right? This internal dialogue will continue to go. So then again, if you kind of look at all of those, and I felt like when she came in, she just had this overall sadness. And I could feel it in my body, and I had brought it up, and she was like, oh, I'm just kind of depressed. I'm just having this little episode. But again, depression is that blanket, all of that energy in the past is how I believe it. Anxiety is too far in the future. So if you look at those emotions, disgust, arrogance, a belief it will happen again, it's easier to hide myself, diminish, less than, all makes sense. So her body wasn't necessarily depressed. It was just trying to process everything for the last 8 weeks that she had been kind of faced and going through and kind of stuffing down to the surface. The next client had come in, and I had pulled some emotions on her, and they were, and she's like in her 50s. And so it was forgotten and a substantial doubt. And when I pulled on that, I was like, hey, are you feeling forgotten at all? She was like, no, not really. I was having back pain. And so when I left to wash my hands, as I do before every session, it kept repeating to me solar plexus, which sits above your belly button and your abdomen. And so when I came back in, I had kind of touched base on various things that were coming kind of forward intuitively, and again, asked her what she was feeling. And the substantial doubt was tied to her child. He was struggling now that we are back in school. Has ADHD, various things. And she was holding a lot of that doubt. Am I parenting right? Am I doing enough? Is the school doing enough? X, Y, and Z. So then we wrapped back around to the forgotten. And I was like, do you feel like you're forgetting other aspects of your life? Your job, your partner, other kids? And she was like, actually, yeah, like I have kind of been feeling that. So then we kind of broke that down, went through it. Various other things came forward, but to respect their privacy, I won't say those. And things come forward for me. Sometimes I get a feeling, sometimes I get a whole sentence, sometimes I get a paragraph, and stuff kept repeating on her kid. And so, or her child. And I just asked, you don't have to tell me anything, but I feel inclined to ask this question. So if you feel safe to answer, I invite you to answer. If not, no biggie. And I was just like, has his exercise shifted at all? And she's like, no, not really. He still stays relatively active. And I said, okay, well, how I view ADHD is too much energy in the body built up. Your body doesn't know how to fully process it, let it go, move it out. So it holds, and it just is overwhelmed in a lot of different ways. And so when I brought that up, you look at school environments, right? Especially that it's been about 7 weeks of school. So we hold a lot, right? Dynamic shift, teacher shift, other kids' energy. The whole environment is completely different than the home environment you had all summer. And so I asked her if she'd be willing to share his birthday information just so I could look at astrology. That's helped me a lot with raising my own child, my own life, how I move forward through life, personality traits, various things. And again, I was like, you don't have to share it if you don't feel safe to. Take what resonates. As always, I'm not trying to push my belief, but sometimes a different perspective is nice. She was open. And so I had sent her everything, a big long list, and just kind of roughly touching on that. What came forward was deeply emotional, empathic, sensitive to moods around them, feels best when there's structure, consistency, clear expectations, curious, chatty, playful, ask a lot of questions, needs stimulation mentally. So when you look at all of those, roughly just kind of describes what ADHD is labeling, right? So it gave different ways of routines, things to do at school, conversations to have with the child, how to approach the kid, etc. So that was another really cool one, because again, if you ask her in the beginning, you feeling forgotten, her first answer was no. But when you start to kind of break it down, there's usually always those deeper layers that tie back to childhood wounding. There was a lot of grief around her heart that we had kind of gone through. So a lot of times when we face certain circumstances in life and are very triggering, we get extremely upset out of nowhere. We don't really understand why we're feeling. It's never really that situation. It's these deeper wounding past programming patterns that we hold. The other client that I will share is in their 40s to 60s, and we're kind of struggling professionally with various things. And I'm just trying to think how I wanted to word this one. They were having elbow pain. And she was like, the doctor diagnosed me with tendonitis, and he asked me if I sleep with my arm tucked up underneath my pillow, and I do, so he wants me to brace it. And she's come to me a few times, so I'm usually just myself, so I just start laughing, and I was like, it's not how you sleep, right? And she's like, yeah, I know, but okay, tell me. So we dove into it, and it pulled up the need to be rescued. Your right side of your body is your masculine, you're very go, 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 very dominant, schedule oriented, need to prove yourself. And so what came to me was at night, that needing to be rescued, that need of protection, that need of safety. When we dove deeper into it, we moved up into the shoulder, and that pulled some childhood abuse. Again, that need to be rescued. Was that the arm they used to protect themselves during that abuse? Aspects, various things, right? So again, I'm inviting you to dive just a little bit deeper, a little bit deeper, a little bit deeper. Followed up with her the next couple of days. Arm felt great, had improved, still a little bit of pain. Again, sometimes it takes some time to work through. A lot of times when we start to bring stuff up to the surface, shit does get hard. It does get a little painful, a little tough. You feel like, oh, I fell back off the wagon. This is worse. But again, sometimes it's that protection that we've made up in our body of, oh shit, I can't let this go, right? I've held on to this for the last 45 years or 60 years or 10 years. Your body holds on to it and doesn't want to let it go. So your pain will start to flare. So you take your focus to the pain and not on the emotional. Just like a lot of times when I tell clients, when your pain is your body's way of trying to talk to you, it's a lot easier anymore in society, because the way that we were built, to focus on the pain than it is to focus on, say, the abandonment. It's much easier to go into work and be like, this hurts, than, oh my gosh, I felt abandoned by this person last night. So just look a little bit deeper. And then another client was a teenager that came in, and I have been feeling this call a lot to work with children, teenagers, young adults, because I think that's a part of where my legacy is at. And so I was really excited when his mom booked. I thought it was just going to be a bodywork appointment. I really didn't think anything too much of it, because again, I just let your body speak what's willing to come forward. And that session came like a ton of bricks. Emotions were shared, tears were shed that haven't been shed in a long time. And it was just a really beautiful session. And they had been dealing with chronic pain for a long time, all over throughout the body. And what pulled in the ankle was unheard. The hip root was vindictive, indecisive, neglected, isolated. Calves and knees feels like they need to prove themselves or save others. So then again, in context, anytime that they felt unheard, their body shut down. Anytime that they felt vindictive, indecisive, neglected, or isolated, their body shut down. So instead of facing that emotion and allowing that to be felt, it got pushed down. And again, hip pain, low back pain, numbness, tingling. Same thing with the calves and knees. Feel like the need to prove yourself, save others. Anytime you feel like you couldn't save others, you weren't being heard in school, any of those things, your body starts to kind of shut down and go in protection. So again, that session was beautiful. I just remember I kept telling them every time I brought up something, they were like, is this normal? Is this normal? And I just was like, dude, it's really not. Like, pain's common, sure, because we are all, a lot of us are unhealed and your body is just trying to talk to you. Pain isn't necessarily bad. We've accustomed to it being bad, running from it, taking medicine, right? It just was a beautiful session. And that's, I hope, something I'm really manifesting on and sitting with is working with younger generations, because I know my life would have been a lot different, especially raising a teenager now myself. So that's kind of the clients I'll talk about today. I know that was a lot. I tend to talk fast, but again, it's just getting to the root, right? Diving a little bit deeper. If you think it's this, more than likely it's not. Dive a little bit deeper. Start talking to your body. What's it saying? What's it needing? Letting your inner child speak, which is something new that I've been doing within part of my journaling, is just allowing Olivia to speak, not to save, not to fix, but just to hear. And to be honest, a lot of stuff's come forward that I didn't even necessarily know I held on to or was a thing. Made a lot of sense when it came out. So just again, allowing whatever to free flow to come out. So I guess my affirmation for you is, it's safe for me to see what's here. Again, we don't have to fix it. We don't have to make sense of it. Nobody else has to know about it, right? But just allowing that inner part of you to come forward. Journal prompt. What obstacles am I ready to meet with compassion and strength this week? Again, what obstacles am I ready to meet with compassion and strength this week? So again, you go back to that collective energy pull of disowning what is happening in life, denial. What part of your life are you denying or in denial about? And are you using it as protection? Yes or no? Take whatever resonates with you. So say that was yes. Going back to that journal prompt, what obstacles am I ready to meet with compassion and strength this week? Is there any part of that denial that you could meet with a little bit of love this week? A little bit of curiosity. And just allow yourself to journal on that, sit with that, think on that. I talk a lot with clients of just allowing it to leave your body. So whether you're in the car after work, you're in the shower, doesn't necessarily have to be to your partner, but just allowing that voice to be heard. So a lot of times, like, I always use this example, but like, you are driving and a car pulls out in front of you, right? And you're like, ah, and then you take a breath and you're like, you know what? I'm not going to let it bother me. Like, whatever. Consciously, that's all okay. But subconsciously back here, this little inner child is like, do you remember when dad was such a crazy driver and dad got in a fight outside the car? And, and your energy will pull back and shift. And so what I always say, like, if you could just feel this, that anger and that little bit of moment, all of this isn't going to connect, right? You feel the anger, it detaches. This is still here. Not everything has to come up to the surface every time we feel an emotion. Sometimes it's just an emotion, and it's okay. There's nothing wrong with feeling betrayed, feeling angry, feeling rage. It's just an emotion that needs felt. And I will die on the hill, and you'll hear me say it a lot, that everything starts in the emotional body before it ever manifests physical. And so I just invite you to look a little bit deeper. And so again, what's kind of come up for me, tying into Say the Denial, I talked about a little bit at the beginning of the episode, but I also have been doing this intuitive work now for the last 3 years or so. And the beginning, I would just kind of sneak it into sessions, the sessions that clients were open to. And then a while back, I changed my website to completely showcase it all. But I still had therapeutic and sports. Those were the 2 sessions I had. They were called intuitive. In the descriptions, it talked about kind of what I offer. But I still was having a few clients that were coming in just wanting traditional massage, which is just not where my passion lies anymore. And yeah, so I decided this weekend it was finally time to switch it up. So now it's intuitive root, ROOT. And that's scary. This is my income. This is my livelihood. This is so many things, right? And so to show up authentically, although I have done that in aspects of my life, those feelings come up, right? So I tried to allow myself this weekend to just feel it. I finished painting the wall in my house, allowed some of that energy to move through, and I've been using my vibration plate a lot. But yeah, so this is my reminder. None of us are perfect. We all struggle. We all get triggered. We all revert back into patterns. And just because those come up doesn't mean we have to stay there. So again, I invite you to allow yourself to feel until the next episode. And just, again, what obstacles can be just invitations to move differently. Not everything has to be a force and a fight and a fight. And as a chronic people pleaser, I've done that my whole life, chasing people, trying to get people to love me, accept me, hear me, understand me. And as scary it is to show up this raw, and I know, like I said in the last episode, rejection is going to come because it's not for everybody, and it will trigger certain aspects of people, or people won't believe it. But it has changed my life in a lot of ways, and I've seen it impact a lot of my clients' lives as well. And at the end of the day, throughout either of these episodes, you'll hear me say over and over again, like, you are the medicine. You are so much more powerful than we are taught to believe. So yeah, we'll end with our little oracle deck. Again, this deck I've used since I first awoke. And I will put this disclaimer out there. This is just a card, right? It's just a card. So take what resonates, don't take it throughout any of these episodes. What pulled is Rhino Spirit, and it's overcome any obstacle. It was in protection, which is upside down. So I'll just read that message. The appearance of an obstacle in front of you offers you a choice. Barrel into it and bang your head, or find the easiest way around it and don't fight it. Are you exhausted by your efforts to break through an obstacle? Are you stubbornly insisting that there is only one way to remove it from your path? Rhino Spirit is here to tell you that sometimes the answer is no. Sometimes it's no, not yet, and sometimes it's no, not the way you think it should be. Open to new possibilities, and you will find other options begin to appear. Not every conflict is worth engaging in, and not every obstacle is worth resisting head-on. Don't waste energy banging your head against the wall. Again, don't waste energy banging your head against the wall. And you know that definition of insanity is trying the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. So if there's a part of your life that you're not getting the results you want, or a doctor is telling you this and you're not believing it, or you're not getting the answers you want with specific healing modality, switch it up, change it, try something new. Come from a place of love. I will always say there's love and fear. That's two ways to operate. 99% of us sit in this fear. We sit up here. But if you can really open up your heart and come into your heart, beautiful things will happen. And yeah, we'll end it there on episode 2. I appreciate you guys, and we'll see you for the next episode.